off. Why don't you stand with us?
Casting my cares aside, I'm leaving my past behind, setting my heart and mind on you, Jesus. I'm reaching my hands to yours, believing there's so much more, knowing that all you have in store for me is good. Now it's good. Today is a day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Today is a day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I won't worry about tomorrow. I'm trusting in what you say. Today is a day. Today is a day. Putting my fears aside, I'm leaving my doubts behind. I'm giving my hopes and dreams to you, Jesus. I'm reaching my hands to yours, believing there's so much more, knowing that all you have in store for me is good. It's good. Today is a day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Today is a day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I won't worry about tomorrow. I'm trusting in what you say. Today is a day. Today is a day. Truth. I will stand up on your truth. And all my days I live for you. All my days I live for you. I will stand up on your truth. I will stand up on your truth. And all my days I live for you. All my days I live. Today is a day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Today is a day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I won't worry about tomorrow. I'm giving you my fears and sorrow. Where you lead me, I will follow. I'm trusting in what you say. Today is a day. 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 Today is a day.
Welcome again to the Quest. Why don't you guys stand and sing with us?
Great imagination. You're the one who gave me my first breath. And you have overseen my life and brought me to redemption. And I know life to light my darkness. Open up my eyes till I could see. Jesus, you have promised to complete the work you started. Faithful to fulfill your grace in me. I'm reaching for you. I'm singing to you. I'm lifting my hands to praise you. I'm lifting my voice to thank you. I'm reaching for you. Jesus, I need you. I'm giving my heart to know you. I'm living my life to serve you. I'm reaching for you. Pour out your love from heaven, fill me until I overflow. Will I want more? Pour out your hands from heaven, pull me closer than ever before. Now I want more. Pour out your love from heaven, fill me until I overflow. Lord, I want more. Reach down your hand from heaven, hold me closer than ever before. Lord, I want more. I'm reaching for you. I'm singing to you. I'm lifting my hands to praise you. I'm lifting my voice to thank you. I'm reaching for you. Jesus, I need you. I'm giving my heart to know you. I'm living my life to serve you. I'm reaching for you. Whoa, whoa. Lord, I'm reaching. God, I'm reaching for you.
Let's welcome back Bill. Great solo, Bill.
author of all eternity, giver of every perfect thing, to you be glory. Maker of heaven and of earth, no one can comprehend your word. King over all the universe, to you be glory. I'm alive because I'm alive in you. All because of Jesus I'm alive, because of love. It's all because of Jesus Christ that encourages me to raise the dead man alive. It's all because of Jesus. Every sunrise sings your praise. The universe cries out your praise. I'm singing freedom all my days. Now that I'm alive, it's all because of Jesus I'm alive. It's all because of the love of Jesus Christ. Yeah, it covers me, erases dead man's life. Yeah, it's all because of Jesus. It's all because of Jesus I'm alive. Because of love. It's all because of love of Jesus Christ. Now it covers me, erases dead man's life. It's all because of Jesus I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive, 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 alive. It's all because of you. It's all because of you. It's all because of you. Well, it's all because of you.
Why don't you say hello to somebody next to you? Give them a handshake. Give them a hug. When do we dismiss this? And kids, you guys can go ahead and go over to Kids Quest. Go have some fun. High school, middle school, look for Franco. He'll be next door as well.
Good morning, good morning. Fire it up. Fire it up. Can I see a raise of hands of who else had stone ground jalapeno cheddar grits this morning? Is that a hand boomer? Oh, okay. It's such a good way to end the Oktoberfest season, even though that's only in Munich. So welcome to the Quest this morning. I've got a couple of things I want to share with you. This weekend, Saturday, is the day of the relationship workshop that Joe and Miriam Martinez are actually putting on at the Nevada School District office from 10:30 to 10:30 to 12:30. 10 to 12:30. Thank you, David. Sorry about that. And the relationship workshop is about building a relationship that you can count on, and it's really focusing on the needs and wants that we each have and in our primary relationship, and then how you go about effectively communicating those needs and wants. And obviously, if you look around to your right and left, you know, we have some great examples of the reality that none of us really has this worked out, and relationships are really hard. So I tell you, the $125 is worth the investment, and it has dividends in ways that are obviously not economic. But encourage, if you're able to slide that into your schedule, whether you think you need it, you might ask your spouse or you might ask a close friend that question, and they may have some ideas on whether you want to invest there. So that's Saturday. We also have Dinners for 7 coming up. I know there's been a couple of announcements on it, and I wanted to be sure that it was kind of recommunicated that we've got 2 things on this flyer that are out back. One, there's only one coming up for Friday, October 10th, and we're actually going to add Sunday, the following Sunday, the 12th, and you can just add that in if either of those. Now, the point of Dinners for 7 is for the people on the left side of the room and the people on the right side of the room to actually start to talk and to get to know one another. And the people, you in the center here, you actually can choose which one you're going to begin interacting with. But seriously, a lot of what we do here is by design, and really what we're trying to practice are the things that are beneficial in life kind of at large. That is, when we go out into relationships with people around us in our work or in our schools or in the community, we're practicing ways to engage and learn from one another and learn how to be interested in other people, learn how to get along and engage with people who have different ideas and mindsets and thoughts, and really be expanding in our relational capacity to express love. And so a part of this Dinners for 7 is really kind of an inter-practice amongst ourselves, where you have a chance to get to know and practice these things. And if you're not practicing these things, you're not going to replicate it out there in the rest of the society and world. So I encourage you, make room. Friday night or Sunday, this coming up, the flyers are in the back, or you can talk to Susie afterwards. Sign up, commit yourself, be there. It's a pretty non-threatening environment, and if you get in trouble, text Susie or me, and we'll figure it out. So Dinners for 7, all right? Next Sunday is Vision Sunday, where Joe and the QLT and the staff are going to be presenting kind of what they've been listening. They've been spending time listening to God and doing some practice, conducting some practices that are useful in helping that listening. And they've got some ideas that they want to share next Sunday. And then after the service on Sunday, those who have elected to participate in a membership role will actually be invited to confirm the annual budget, and then any QLT exchanges or individuals who will be on that leadership team. The Quest leadership team is QLT. So that's next Sunday, Vision Sunday. And then, David, there was one other thing. Trunk or treat. So I think we've also had several topics on that. We are a little short for trunk or treat, which is on Halloween, where we open our campus and really where the community is invited to come and have a safe place where kids, especially younger kids, can walk around the perimeter. You see an example of the car out front. It doesn't have to be that fancy. I'm not even sure who owns that car, but I'm thinking that there's probably going to be a good-sized check here in the offering. Anyway.
I think we're going to raffle it off later.
Oh, raffle off. Okay. All right. I might put in the first low bid. Anyway, so that's the example. It doesn't have to be that fancy, but really what we're doing is, again, it's a practice of expanding our opportunity to share our lives and our time with other people that we don't know, which is, really a core heartstring of a faith expression. And so if you have decided you want to participate in that, we're going to have right here. I'm going to pass these around. So, and just keep them in your section. Somehow this gets very disorganized. Okay, this keeps in this section, this is in this section, and this is over here. Yeah, it's very engineering and German-like. Jawohl. Okay, and then, lastly but not least, another practice that we have so many opportunities to practice. We are going to, during this next song, we're going to take an offering. And if you're a guest with us, please ignore most of what I just said. I really apologize I didn't address that earlier. But anyway, this is a practice that we have where we're learning how not to consume everything I earn and make so that I can be a benefit to other people. And we're not sure exactly how this is all going to work out, but the Quest does take money to run. And so this is our practice of learning how to devote some amount of my opportunity to learn how to consume less than everything that I have. And so I just encourage you as you are led and as you begin thinking about how you should be participating, I just encourage you to to use that time or any future time to participate in that way. So it's great to see all of you that I can, and welcome this morning. Take care.
Keep it in, I can't keep it in, I gotta let it out. Gotta show the world's gotta see all the love that's in me. I said, why walk alone, why worry when it's home over here? You got so much to say what you mean what you're thinking and thinking and think. Oh, why must you waste your life away? You've got to live for today, then let it go. Oh, now lover, I want to spend this time with you. There's nothing I wouldn't do if you let me know. Oh, well, I can't keep it in, I can't hide it in, I can't lock it away. I'm up for your love heats my blood spins my head and my head falls in love. Oh, I can't keep it in, I gotta let it out. I've gotta show the world's gotta know of the love that lies low. So why can't you say, if you know, then why can't you say, you got too much to see kills the light. Light has to shine, I said shine light, love. That's the way to live your life. You allow too much to go by, and that won't do. No, lover, have you here by my side. Now don't you run, don't you hide while I'm with you. Oh, no, I can't keep it in, I gotta let it out. I've gotta show the world's gotta see all the love that's in me. I said, why walk alone, why worry when it's warm over here? You got so much to say what you mean what you think anything. Why not? Yeah, why not?
Thanks, guys, for doing that. Cat Stevens. Remember him? You do. It's a beautiful thing. Let's pray. And I've got lots to talk about today. I'm really glad you're here. God, thank you. Thanks for that piece of music. And I pray that you would help us to embody more and more what it means to love. And love in difficult places, and love with difficult people. And I ask that you'd help us to actually, with great effort, work towards the kind of life that we all dream is possible. And I'm grateful that you make it possible, that you assist us, that you come alongside. And I pray that you'd help us to understand how to take another step in that today. We're grateful, Father, for this place and these people, and I pray that you'd help us together in Jesus' name. Amen. So it's great to see you. I'm really glad you're here. And I want to talk about wellness. We've been talking about wellness for months now, different kinds of wellness, and we're in the midst of a section that we've kind of labeled spiritual wellness. What does that mean? Now, you can define spiritual wellness in hundreds of ways, depending on what book you pick up or who you listen to or what your tradition is. But as I understand spiritual wellness in kind of the ancient tradition of those who those who kind of have gone before us, and actually not only in our kind of an Orthodox Christian way, but also in other traditions, there are these three big ideas that seem to indicate that someone's heart, soul, is actually growing and expanding and healthy. That's what wellness is, to be healthy. So those three conditions are: hold no resentments. In other words, if your heart is growing and alive and increasing in its capacity to love, your heart will not be hindered by holding on to resentments. So, hold no resentments. Second one is, have no reactions. What does that mean? Well, there's a difference, and the difference, the idea lies in the difference between reacting and responding. So hold no reactions carries the negative idea. The positive idea is always have a compassionate response to whatever has just happened. Now you can see, the bar is set pretty high for what it means to be spiritually well. I don't have any resentments. There's nothing kind of rattling around in my heart that I need to kind of work through. And when things come at me, I'm responding with compassion to them, no matter what they are or how fast they come. Okay, there's a last one. And the last one is just simply to maintain inner peace. So, that was hard last night around inning 16, wasn't it? Wow. Maintain inner peace. Now, do you see how they're related? If you can't do number one, there's no way to have a compassionate response rather than a reaction, especially if the person which has caused the resentment is in your life. And if you can't do number one and number two, then number three is nearly impossible. And it's interesting that a lot of us try for number three without working through one and two. And so what I want to do is just walk through them. So that's kind of the big idea of spiritual wellness. Now, we've been unpacking resentment. And a resentment is simple, really. And there's notes in front of you. Hopefully you got a set, but some of them will appear up on the board as well. A resentment is just the idea that you feel a hurt, a deep hurt that you've had in the past. Holding on to resentment means that you actually feel it again. When you think of the person that caused the hurt, or you see them, or you experience something similar, you feel that pain again. That's a resentment. So, last week we began talking about the antidote for resentment. So, the idea is, it's not enough to just say, don't resent. And I have to say that in my life growing up, when someone would give me a good idea like that, hold no resentments, and then, so good luck with that, is what it felt like. Yeah, right? I'm still holding on to that, I think, yeah. What I want to do is talk about, all right, I've got resentments. I've got these things that are kind of rattling around, and, if you're a little older, then the potential for resentment is greater, because resentments are cumulative, right? They add up like sediment in our heart. So the antidote for resentment is forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is much maligned and much misunderstood. And if you weren't here last week, I want to encourage you to go back and listen to the podcast, or I wouldn't recommend the video because it's visual, and I wasn't looking my best last week. I was having kind of a bad hair day. Today it's much better. But we are recording these because for people who are more visual, it's a good thing. And there's actually people logged on to the internet watching us from other places. David, how many people are logged on? Can you tell? Hundreds? 8? All right, 8. There's 8 of them. Hello, you 8 people. It's a good thing that the video doesn't go both ways, because I think some of them are probably more relaxed than we are in there. So that's an option for you. If the antidote is forgiveness, then how do we forgive? That's kind of where we are. So that's the logic of my thinking. I can't just say don't hold a resentment without talking about what a resentment is and how they kind of fester, and we've done that. And so now the antidote, how do I let go of some of those resentments? It's forgiveness. So we started talking last week about what forgiveness wasn't, and there are a lot of myths about forgiveness. And I think a lot of us are hesitant to forgive because of those myths. And again, I'm tempted to go back and talk about them, but I can't, or we'll never make any progress. I want to read this great passage that the Apostle Paul writes in the Newer Testament book of Ephesians. It's just a little church like ours in a town called Ephesus. And Paul started the church and then left and then wrote a letter to it talking about this very thing. It's remarkable that not much has changed. He says this, get rid of all bitterness, rage, and that's the word that could be translated resentment, this deep-seated feeling of anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice, and be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, there's the antidote, just as Christ God forgave you. Forgiveness. You know, we're saddled with human beings with two, by the way, Dinners for Seven. Susie, pick some dates. Listen, if you want to do this, Dinners for Seven, connect with some other people, and these dates don't suit you, just write another date in and drop it in the box on the back. And if there's other people that want to do that date, then we'll set it up. It's not like, right, Suze? I mean, this isn't like these are the only dates you could possibly meet. But if you want to do this, and I think you should, it's good. It's good to go to each other's houses and invite neighbors and just have a meal together. If you want to do this and you can't do it on these dates, just write another date in, and Suze will do the draft on that. There's two big problems that makes it necessary for us to forgive. One is this, that we've been given the remarkable power to remember. Now, I love our two dogs. And there's some kind of a memory in there. When I shake the box of treats, they come running. It's like Pavlovian, right? They hear the sound, whew. But they don't have deep-seated resentments. Humans, however, we've been given the power to remember, but we are not given the power to change what we remember. So, without forgiveness and the ability to process, we're doomed to live with those bad memories, and those bad memories color everything. The skill to process what was painful, difficult, unfair, that skill makes the future, it makes me look forward to the future and enjoy the present. Without those, what happens in a life, and so, by the way, every day, here's how I set my expectations for the day. Someone today is going to do something that's going to really tick me off. They're going to do something that's going to hurt my feelings or make me angry, and maybe sometimes on purpose, mostly not on purpose. And unless I process that, every day I'm going to kind of build up this accumulation of junk, and my relationships are going to become fewer and fewer and fewer. Do you know anyone like that? Who's kind of, their focus is narrowed, and they used to have all kinds of relationships, and now, because they'll write you off if you hurt their feelings, they've written so many people off that there's nobody left. Now, that's possible, but it's not what I want. So I've got the power to remember, but I don't have the power to change what I remember. And then number two, we've given the remarkable power to imagine the future, but we have not been given the power to control it. It seems kind of unfair. I think about the future. I think about my 3 sons and about my mom and dad and obviously my life with Lynn and my friends, and I kind of project into the future what it might be like. And if I have to take all of the garbage and nonsense from my past into that future, it's diminished. So, when I say hold no resentments, what I mean is keep short accounts. And again, it's easy to say, it's hard to do. So what is forgiveness? Now, let me read you a quick definition of forgiveness. I like this, and again, I read it kind of because it's important to say, but I want to make sure that if you didn't kind of hear what we said about all of these myths about it last week, that you go back and listen because it's really important. Forgiveness just means, technically it means to send away. Send away or dismiss an offense. So when I forgive someone, and let's talk about kind of a minor offense. When I forgive someone of a minor offense, what I do is I say, okay, I'm going to send it away and I'm going to treat you like it didn't happen. Now, again, last week we talked about what happens when someone is in a very unhealthy way, constantly hurting, or, it doesn't mean you stay. It doesn't mean you don't do important things. So I don't want to just whitewash it. But technically what forgiveness means is that I'm going to treat, I'm going to pick on Kathy. So if I hurt Kathy's feelings and she forgives me, what that means is she not only doesn't hold it against me, but she's not going to bring it up. Yeah. Can you imagine if you could actually do that? Well, let me suggest that it's possible. It's possible. So I want to talk about how we forgive. And by the way, I've recommended this to so many people. It's in the back of your notes, back of the slides, the last slide. If you have something to do with this and you want to know more about it, and you do, there's nobody in this room that doesn't need to know more about this. You need to get this book. It's called The Art of Forgiving by Lewis Smedes. Hands down, the best thing I've ever read on forgiveness. It's remarkable. And a lot of what I'm saying, I've kind of made it my own, but a lot of what I'm saying, the ideas were not only born here, but some of them developed here by Mr. Smedes. It's a great book. And it's easy to read. And I've had so many copies that now I wrote my name on it so that no one would take this one. But because I mark it up, and it's a constant process. It's not like, okay, great, I've forgiven, now that's that. No. It's like your grass. I don't have a gardener. Most of you go, oh yeah, that explains it. I've driven past your house. And so that means, right now, front yard, turn the sprinklers off, it's not growing. But when it is, I have to cut the grass. And then next week, I have to cut the grass. And then next week, I have to cut the grass. It's not like, well, I've already cut the grass. The neighbor comes by because it's up to knee high, right? And he's wondering, if his cat is actually lost in there. Oh, your grass. Says, well, I've cut the grass. That's forgiveness is exactly the same. We have to do it often because we live with one another. The people that you live with are going to hurt your feelings. Sometimes accidentally, sometimes on purpose. The people that you work with, the people that you live near, the people that you live near and you work with that you don't like, and the people that you live near and you're related to and you work with that you do like. We're going to have our feelings hurt. And if we can't learn how to do this, we're just in deep trouble. So let's learn how to do it. And I want to just talk about some more ideas that I think will be helpful. So number one, you can only forgive people that you blame. Now this word blame is a good word. It's been much maligned. Don't blame me. Blame, what does blame mean? It just means to assign responsibility for a fault. In other words, I've explained it like this, using a male, because it's usually us that messes up. What does it mean to blame someone? Well, he did it. And he knows he did it, and I know he did it. I know he's done it. He meant to do it. He knew what he was doing when he did it. And number three, he initiated the action. No one held a gun to his head. No one forced him to do it. That's blame. So I come to that person and I say, you are to blame. Now, that's an uncomfortable thing to say, isn't it? You are to blame. Now, this gets very difficult when a corporate you've been hurt by your company. Who do you blame? Let's see, that's a tough one. Is there an individual responsible for the pain that I'm feeling for getting laid off or fired, or is I didn't get that particular job, or we have this big kind of set of resentments for entities that aren't actually one or two human beings, but are really kind of big and globby. And it's hard to find someone to blame. I would suggest that if you can't find someone, a person, to blame, then forgiveness isn't an option. And there's another way through that, but it's not forgiveness. You can't forgive if there is no blame. Does that make sense? So what we're forgiving is the thing that they are to blame for. Now, I've realized in my life that sometimes I think someone's to blame when they're actually not. And that sometimes the resentments that I'm holding, if they were investigated, I would realize that this person really didn't have anything to do with what I'm blaming them for. Or it was a misunderstanding, and what I thought they were doing wasn't what they were doing. Remember that old thing that we say once in a while, we judge ourselves by our intentions. We judge everyone else by their actions. Right? And so I can excuse myself sometimes when Jim comes to me and says, Joe, dude, what is the deal with this? This is what you did. And I go, oh, well, that wasn't what I intended to do. Now, forgiving is not the same as excusing. And what I want to do, really what I want to do about this is do some careful thinking about what it means to forgive someone. Because I don't think we have. And I don't think that I have done careful thinking about forgiveness. So if Jim says, man, I think, Joe, you really did this thing and it hurt me, and I explain it and I go, that's not what I did at all, then he can't forgive me because he can't blame me. But he can excuse what happened. Oh, okay. But it's a whole different thing. What I'm talking about is forgiving someone who's to blame. Pick them out, read them the riot act, and hold them accountable. Blame them. It's okay. Blame has got this bad reputation, but it's okay. I'm to blame sometimes. It speaks to responsibility. Blame. Now, we can only... So let's move on. I'm sure that there's no questions about that. The second thing I want to say is this. We can only forgive people for what they do. We cannot forgive them for who they are. In other words, I can't blame you for being lazy. I can blame you if your laziness makes you miss an appointment that we've set up. Does that make sense? You say, you know what, I want to forgive you for your laziness. Well, you can't, I can't forgive you for being a liar. But I can forgive you for the specific lie that hurt me. We can't forgive someone in general. Well, and there's illustration after illustration of this. It's really important that we don't let who someone is, without their actions, but just generally who they are. And, you like some kinds of people and you don't like other kinds. You might like extroverts and not like introverts. You might like introverts and not like extroverts. You might say, you know what? I don't want to hang out with that guy. He's just too loud all the time. And he has no emotional intelligence. He asks inappropriate questions. Well, you don't have to have a relationship with that person. It's okay. But neither is there anything to forgive him for. Now, if he asks you an inappropriate question, a specific one, and you can tie him down and actually assign blame, now you have a forgiveness issue. And forgiveness, if it's not given and not worked through, will become resentment. And resentment will eventually begin to poison our hearts. That's the problem with it. Specificity. Now, I'm not a very specific person. I'm kind of like, well, you know. See, what I just did was I excused myself for the kind of person I am. You know what? I can't really be concerned with those kinds of details. Now, you don't have to forgive me for that. But if me not paying attention to detail, so Andrea's sister got married last weekend. It was wonderful. John, Katie, it was great. So Andrea was there, Barbara was there, and Walt, and everybody. I mean, it was great. We had a great time. Now, I'm not a real detailed person. Marilyn was there. Some of you were there. Yeah, Marilyn came too. I'm not a real detailed person. So if, you know, it's like Sunday at 5:30 and I get a phone call and it's Barbara. I said, Joe, you know, you were supposed to do my daughter's wedding an hour ago. Oh, I'm not a real detailed person. Now she has something specific. Does that make sense? Okay. So if I know that if I'm going to come into relationship with Scott Steinmetz, and I love Scott deeply, he's an engineer, and that's kind of how he thinks. He thinks about this section, and this section, and this section. I love that. I love that. And I have to kind of go into that relationship going, Scott thinks like an engineer. I don't think like an engineer. So I know that there's going to be, that could cause some issues. Now, it might not, but I can't ever forgive Scott for having the brain that he has. It's not, in fact, I'm grateful that he has it. But neither can he accuse me for having the brain that I have, the way that I think. So, specificity. I can't forgive someone for who they are. You want to hear a really good Bible illustration of this is in Luke chapter 15, prodigal son. Two different kinds of sons. One was duty-bound, the older son. One was footloose and fancy-free. One son would have lived in a really nice house in Belvedere. The other son would have lived in Bolinas. There you go. There's the Marin explanation. And so the father had two kinds of sons. He did not have to forgive the son that left. And by the way, if you read that story, and I'm going to recommend you do, it's in the end of your notes. If you read that story, you will realize that the father had already forgiven the younger son before he returned. I love this story. What did he have to forgive him for? Well, now that's an interesting discussion. He did not have to forgive him for wasting his money because it wasn't his money anymore. It was his son's. By law, you can do anything you want with that money. I mean, there's a lot of things that son did that we think the father had to forgive him for. But the one thing in that culture that he had to be forgiven for was shaming his father. He left. He just couldn't do that. Now, I don't know. I know we don't get that because that's what we do, right? We are raised to leave. And it's like, go, whatever. You're out. And then you change the bedroom into a fitness center. I get that. That is not the Hebrew culture. In the Hebrew culture, there was a patriarch. And when that son took everything and then skipped town, that father felt a great deal of shame. Now, what did he have to forgive his son for? He had to forgive his son for something very specific. And I'd love you to read that story later. But by the time the son comes back, the son says, rehearses his speech, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. In other words, what's the word mean? I missed the mark. I did not act lovingly towards God or towards you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. And before he could get the speech done, the father said, Stop! Kill the fatted calf. Let's have a party. Bring shoes for his feet and a ring for his finger. What's the ring? It wasn't a wedding ring. It was a signet ring with the family crest on it. My son, who was dead, has now come back and is alive. Restoration, complete and utter restoration. When did it happen? He was forgiven before he ever started to come home. See? Big. It's big. It's big. So when he came home, he came into forgiveness. Wow. Wow. The father did not have to forgive him for being the kind of son that would run off and not the dutiful one. No, that wasn't forgivable because it's just who he was. The older son has trouble with that. We can only forgive people for what they have done, not for who they are. Let me give you another one. We must process the pain that was inflicted. Now this we don't like to do. What do I mean by that? So forgiveness is a remedy for pain. But only actually after we feel it. Now we don't like to feel it. So let me just give you some ideas. Acknowledge it. Someone's done something to you and somebody else asks, boy, how are you after that happened? You go, oh, I'm doing okay. I'm fine. Liar. I mean, but we think somehow that if we just don't think about it, we just don't process it, that it'll get better. But what it does is, unless we really feel it, we don't understand that forgiveness is necessary for it. So acknowledge it. I am really hurting, Barbara could say, because Joe missed Katie's wedding. Thankfully, I was there right on time. Plenty of time. I had plenty of time. I wasn't late at all. And it was a wonderful wedding, wasn't it? Yeah, I was early, yes. Thank you. I'm hurting. See, when we say that, though, we think that what we've done is given someone else power. You have the power to hurt me. Well, yeah, that's true, right? It's okay. If you love someone, they have the power to hurt you. The only person that does not have the capacity to feel pain is the person who is not loving anyone. Feel it. Name it. And then name it. Get specific. I am feeling angry. I'm feeling betrayed. Fill it in. Now, this gets back to rain. Remember a few weeks ago? Rain. Recognize what's happening inside of you. Allow it to happen. Investigate with kindness. And don't just identify yourself with that thing. Realize that it's different, separate from you. It's important stuff. I hate to say it, but we actually have to process this stuff if we're going to be okay. See, this is the thing. Okayness isn't our default mode. And I don't know why we think it is. Think, oh man, I don't want to be in a relationship with that person. It's just way too much work. Well, dude, if you're in a loving relationship, it's going to be work. It's so funny. Name it. I'm feeling this. And then evaluate it. Here's the funny thing. Sometimes, I need to evaluate my kind of, not the feeling itself, but the amount of it. So let's go back to Barbara and the wedding. If I forget to show up to a coffee that you have arranged, that's one thing. You go, moron. Now, I don't know why I'm even using this illustration, because I'm really good at showing up for things. Maybe that's why. This is harmless. If I forget to show up for a coffee, that's one thing. If I forget to show up for a wedding for your daughter, that's another thing. So the rage that Barbara would feel would be much greater than the rage that you would feel for the coffee. But sometimes people just feel the same amount of rage for everything. We need to evaluate it and go, wait a second. He missed a coffee with you. You need to just calm down just a little. Now, I get it. I get how you felt like you didn't matter. See, that's the thing. What did me missing that coffee, how did you feel after that? Well, I just felt inconvenienced. Well, that's one thing. But if you feel like, well, it feels like, once again, that I don't matter to anybody, now that's a whole other thing. So when you come to me and say, when you missed that coffee, it made me feel completely, just like I didn't matter. And then I say, oh, so sorry. I was in a car accident. I mean, I'm just making all this up, right? And then the person goes, oh. See, now I can't blame me for missing a coffee because I was on my way to the hospital. She doesn't have anything to forgive, or he doesn't have anything to forgive. But see how investigation helps with that? Now, these are really black and white. Life isn't quite this black and white, but I got to acknowledge what it is I'm feeling. Feel it. It's okay to feel pain. It doesn't matter. I hear that all the time. Someone gets hurt and they say, it doesn't matter. What that means is, I'm not worth it. It's happened so many times, I don't even feel it. I guess I'm just the kind of person who... No, that's not good thinking. That's not fair. So we've got to process the pain that was inflicted. And I want to say it again. Do careful thinking. You may need some help walking through this. That's what friends do. They help us with this. Let me give you two more and then I'll be done. We must not forgive too quickly. What? Yeah. Let me just talk about this one for a second. I think some of us forgive too quickly. Now, I'm not talking about something like forgetting a coffee with someone. We need to process that one. But let's talk about something a little bit bigger. And you can have fun with that in your mind. Come up with something bigger that you need to forgive for. I think sometimes we say, I forgive you, to escape confrontation. Yeah, well, you need some time with this. So someone does something and it hurts you and you're feeling the pain and they come to you and say, oh, you know what? I am really sorry, Barbara, I missed that wedding. Oh, it's a funny thing. I just got in the middle of a movie and I was so engaged with that movie. Oh, and Barbara says, oh, well, I forgive you. And then I was like, man, why doesn't Barbara come to the Quest anymore? It's weird. And all her friends and family are gone. And we do that sometimes. Barbara would go, you what? I mean, Barbara should get loud at that point. Thank you for letting me do this with you. What do you mean you got involved in them? Are you kidding me? No, I don't forgive you. What do you mean you don't forgive me? I thought that's what Christians did. We don't forgive that way. You confront. Confront. We sometimes forgive quickly because it's the spiritual thing to do. Well, I have to forgive quickly. But what we do is we say, I forgive you, but nothing's changed in our hearts. You get that? That's what I'm talking about. We say, oh, I forgive you. But there's still this deep kind of black thing going on in here. But I have to say I forgive you because that's what people who are spiritual do. And I don't want resentments, and so I need to, yes, I forgive you. But we haven't. I mean, you know if you have or you haven't. It's okay to say, you know what? I'm still working through this. And I want to, but I'm not ready to do that yet. I need to process some stuff. Sometimes, I've seen this a lot of times between husbands and wives. Sometimes we forgive quickly to gain an advantage. Yeah, I forgive you. What does that mean? Well, here's a great illustration. I forgive you because I know I'm going to do something soon and I'd like to have some chips. That's obviously not forgiveness, right? Or it happens like this sometimes. One of the partners in the marriage or in the relationship does something that's almost unforgivable, and the other person forgives them but treats them different for the rest of their relationship. It's hard. So don't forgive too quickly. How long should it take? I don't know. On the other hand, and lastly, we must not forgive too slowly. It's like Goldilocks forgiveness. Resentment and bitterness will stain your soul. So the idea is to feel this pain and to have the desire to process it and work through it. And if that's your desire and you're asking for help and you're reading some things. I don't know what you have on the side of your bedside table or wherever it is you read, but it's got to be more than just, motorcycle handbooks for me. I have to read about how to have a healthy marriage. I have to read about forgiveness. I have to read about how the church should work. I have to read about how to kind of live with adult children. I have to read these things and kind of expose myself to them. And if I'm committed to that, if I'm committed to working through this, then the speed will kind of find itself. Left unchecked, the pain that we feel, if we're not working on our forgiveness, left unchecked, that will begin to assume your identity. Let me ask you this question. Does anyone know, and you don't have to raise your hand, please, someone who is a little older, maybe 70 or 80, and every time you see them, they tell you about something that happened to them when they were 40? Well, that company really did me wrong. And that's anyone that they talk to, that's all you hear about. It's consumed them. That can happen. Sometimes when I have time to just sit and think, I think about the old man I want to be. And I have to tell you, I don't want to rush into it, but I'm looking forward to it. And I'm becoming the old man. The old man I want to be. I want that old man to be more expansive in relationships. I want that old man to be able to think he knows less, not more. I want that old man to begin to understand more and more about what I don't know, and to be more curious with the time I have. I want that old man to be able to process things and not allow my relationships to shrink and shrivel because, how many times have you heard this? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It's not going to happen. Self-protection is our MO. We walk through life as self-protectors. and actually, by the way, opposite is love. Just look at Christ. Self-protection wasn't even on his radar. Now, don't forgive too slowly. Ignored further, they'll eventually take our lives. I know a woman who I love very deeply and got to know when we lived in the Midwest, and I know that. I can't say I know. If she was here, she would say, resentment gave me cancer. Yeah. So this bitterness settles in my heart, and it kind of creates a bile. And it makes me sick. I don't want to live that way. And so, how do I move away from that? There's two ways to do it. One, stop hanging out with people. Everyone who wants to stop hanging out with people, come with me. Oh, no, that won't work. But you can't do that. Now, some of us try. So you have to kind of go into the day going, you know what? I'm going to do a dumb thing today, and someone's going to do a dumb thing today, and I need to work through it. So the other way to do it is to process it. And you guys can come up, band. We're going to close up. I want to read a passage from the book of Genesis. My favorite story in all the Bible is the story of Joseph in the First Testament. It's a lot of people's favorite story. In fact, it's a Broadway musical, right? Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. It's Genesis chapter 40 to 50. Listen to this. So, you know the story? In a nutshell, Joseph had 11 brothers, and 10 of them hated him because Joseph was his father's favorite. 10 of the brothers were older, and Joseph was given special privileges, and they hated his guts. I mean, it wasn't like we don't like him much. In fact, they decided when they all got away from Dad, they would kill him, murder him. And then one of them came up with a great idea. No, let's not murder him. Let's just throw him in this pit. Then, dry well in the middle of the desert. Oh, okay, that's a better idea. And then another one had a really good idea. When they saw the slave train coming by, they said, let's pull him out of the pit and sell him into slavery. Well, at least make a little bit of dough. Joseph is sold into slavery. And very long story short, 17 years later, he is now second in command of Egypt, the most powerful nation in the world. He has been protecting his heart this whole time, walking through things, trying to process all of the stuff that happened to him. And one day, his brothers come before him. He's now looks just like an Egyptian. They don't recognize him. He's got the Egyptian makeup on and clothing. And his brothers show up to beg for food because they're starving. And Joseph recognizes his brothers. Oh, what a story. Now, this is a little further in the story. Joseph brought his brothers down to Egypt and their father. And then one day the father died, and the brothers all said, oh boy, we're in trouble because I think Joseph was just being merciful to us for Dad's benefit, and now Dad is dead. Listen to this. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, what if Joseph holds a grudge? That's what we're talking about, resentment. What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrongs we did to him? Well, you would all be dead. Because Joseph had the power to just say, take them away, kill them. So they sent word to Joseph saying, your father left these instructions before he died. This is what you're to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and the wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Now please forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father. When this message came to him, Joseph wept. And I don't know why. About the story. I knew it was a lie first. He wept because his father was dead. And I think he also wept because his brothers thought that he was going to be vindictive. His brothers then came and threw themselves down before him. We are your slaves, they said. But Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me. See the blame? He's not excusing their behavior. You intended to harm me. But God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. That's what forgiveness does. It helps you to speak kindly with compassion and care to people who have hurt you deeply. It doesn't excuse what they did, but it no longer holds you in bondage. And I need that. So my hope, friends, is that this will just be the beginning of a lot of thinking and work about forgiveness. It can clear up a lot of the stuff that's hurting your current relationships and will hurt your future ones. And I hope that this sermon is just kind of wet your whistle and that you'll do more work. That book is a good start. So Father, help us with this. We are living and hanging out with people and there are things, God, that we don't know how to process. We've never learned how to do this. And our culture is very, very bad at it. They don't teach us well. And so I ask, Father, that you would help us to do the work we need to do so that we can process things when life comes at us, as it does every moment of every day, so that we will be people who hold no resentments. Pray that you would help us to do the work necessary for that to be true. And I pray this and ask your help because I know how deeply you love us. Amen. Thanks, you guys. Have a great day.